Please don't joke with me. Daniel Carter's voice cracked as the entire ballroom went silent. 300 people were staring at him. Some were smiling. Some were whispering. A few were already holding up their phones. And at the center of it all stood Victoria Bennett, the billionaire CEO whose name appeared on skyscrapers, business magazines, and television screens across the country. She had just walked away from a room full of millionaires. Ignored two CEOs trying to get her attention. Crossed the ballroom, and stopped directly in front of Daniel. The poor single father had arrived wearing a borrowed suit. She was wearing a diamond necklace worth more than his house. Then she looked into his frightened eyes and said the words that changed his life. "I'm not joking, Daniel. I'm asking you to marry me." Someone gasped. Someone laughed. Daniel's face burned. "Please," he whispered. "Not like this." Victoria's expression softened. She stepped closer. "Then let me explain." But before she could say another word, an 8-year-old girl came running through the crowd. "Daddy." Daniel turned immediately. Lily threw her arms around his waist. And Victoria watched as the most important men in the room forgot about the billionaire standing in front of him. Forgot about the crowd, forgot about the cameras. He knelt. "Hey, sweetheart. What happened?" Lily wiped her eyes. The lady in the kitchen fell down. Daniel stood instantly. "Where?" Lily pointed toward the service hallway. Daniel ran. Victoria followed. The woman was an elderly cleaning employee named Mrs. Thompson. She had collapsed beside a cart of dishes. One hand pressed against her chest. Daniel dropped beside her. "Someone call 911. A few guests stared from a distance. Daniel loosened the woman's collar and spoke gently. "Stay with me, ma'am. Help is coming." Mrs. Thompson opened her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything. I was supposed to clean the kitchen." Daniel shook his head. "You don't need to worry about a kitchen right now." Victoria watched quietly. The ambulance arrived minutes later. As paramedics carried Mrs. Thompson away, Daniel stood in the hallway with Lily clinging to his hand. Then he noticed something. The woman's purse had fallen open. A small envelope was sticking out. Daniel picked it up and handed it to the paramedic. "Make sure she gets this." The paramedic nodded. Victoria stared at him. "You don't even know her." Daniel looked at her. "Does that matter?" Those 4 words stayed with Victoria long after the ambulance disappeared. Daniel had spent most of his adult life learning how to survive without asking anyone for help. His wife, Rachel, had died 4 years earlier after a sudden illness. Since then, he had raised Lily alone. He worked 2 jobs when necessary. He repaired broken appliances instead of replacing them. He drove an old sedan that made strange noises whenever it rained. He sometimes skipped dinner so Lily could have enough groceries for the week. But he never allowed his daughter to feel poor. He taught her that wealth wasn't measured by what you owned. It was measured by what you were willing to give. Victoria Bennett had everything money could buy. Except peace. Her father had built Bennett Global from nothing, but after his death, Victoria inherited both the company and a family that measured love in contracts. Her mother wanted her married to a wealthy investor. Her board wanted her focused on expansion. Her fiancé wanted her money. Nobody asked whether she was happy. Then she met Daniel. It happened 3 months earlier. Victoria had been leaving the office during a thunderstorm when she saw Daniel standing outside with an umbrella. Not waiting for her. Waiting for Lily. The little girl was sitting on a bench nearby, doing homework while her father worked late. Victoria had asked why Daniel hadn't hired a driver. He smiled. "Because Lily likes walking home with me." "You're an executive assistant to the CEO." "Exactly." Victoria had laughed. That was the first time she saw him differently. Daniel wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't interested in her money. He didn't even seem impressed by it. And that terrified her. Because for the first time in years, someone treated Victoria like a human being instead of a bank account. Weeks passed. Daniel helped an elderly security guard carry groceries. He brought extra lunch to a janitor whose wife was sick. He stayed late to help a young employee prepare for an important presentation. Even though it wasn't his job, Victoria noticed everything. And slowly, she fell in love with him. Not because he was handsome. Not because he was poor. Because he was kind when nobody was watching. That night, at the charity gala, Victoria finally decided she couldn't keep pretending. She had invited Daniel because she wanted to tell him the truth. But when she walked toward him in front of everyone, she lost her courage and said it the most reckless way possible. "Marry me." Now, after the ambulance left, Daniel shook his head. "Victoria, you can't do this." "Why?" "Because you're a billionaire. And you're Daniel." "That doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense to me." He looked around the ballroom. People were watching. "Everyone thinks you're humiliating me." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "No. They're watching me risk humiliation." Daniel frowned. She continued. "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from me. You were the first person who gave me something without asking for anything back." Daniel looked at Lily. The little girl was smiling. "Daddy," she whispered, "I like her." Daniel almost laughed. "You barely know her." "I know enough." Victoria smiled through her tears. But then a man stepped forward. It was Charles Bennett, Victoria's uncle and one of the company's board members. "This is absurd," he said. "Victoria, you cannot seriously be considering marriage to an employee." Daniel stepped back. Victoria turned cold. "Don't speak about him like that." Charles laughed. "You're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. And he has nothing." Victoria looked at Daniel. Then at Charles. "He has something none of you ever had." Charles raised an eyebrow. "What?" "A heart." Silence. Victoria removed the diamond necklace from her neck. She placed it on the table. "I don't need this to prove I'm successful." Then she looked at Daniel. "I need to know whether you'll give me a chance." Daniel swallowed. "Victoria, I don't expect an answer tonight." She took Lily's hand. "But I want you to understand something." "What?" "I didn't choose you because you're poor." Her voice trembled. "I chose you because when you saw someone hurting, you didn't ask what they could do for you." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "You helped someone when nobody was watching." Victoria squeezed Lily's hand. "And you taught your daughter to do the same." 3 weeks later, Daniel received a phone call. Mrs. Thompson had survived. But there was a problem. She had no family nearby and couldn't afford her medical expenses. Daniel wanted to help, but he barely had enough money for his own bills. So he did what he always did. He organized a small fundraiser. He sold his old television. He asked coworkers to contribute. Lily made handmade cards. And somehow, the money began to grow. But Daniel didn't know Victoria was watching. She didn't simply pay the hospital bill. She created a permanent medical assistance fund for every employee at Bennett Global who needed emergency care. She never put her name on it. Daniel discovered the truth months later. He confronted her. "You did this because of me." "No." "Yes, you did." Victoria smiled. "I did it because of you." Daniel laughed softly. "That doesn't make sense." "It does." She stepped closer. "You reminded me that kindness shouldn't need applause." Daniel looked at her. "And what about your proposal?" Victoria's smile disappeared. "I meant every word." He reached for her hand. "I was scared." "So was I." "I don't know how to live in your world." Victoria squeezed his fingers. "Then don't." "What?" "Let's build our own." Behind them, Lily was watching. She suddenly shouted, "Does this mean Victoria is staying?" Daniel laughed. Victoria laughed too. Daniel looked at the little girl who had been his whole world for 8 years. Then he looked at the woman who had somehow found her way into that world. "Yes," he said. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," Daniel repeated. "She can stay." Lily ran into Victoria's arms. For the first time in years, Victoria cried without hiding it. Not because she had lost something. Because she had finally found something money could never buy. A family. And Daniel learned that sometimes the richest person in the room isn't the one with the most money. Sometimes it's the person who still has enough heart to give when they have almost nothing left. And sometimes one simple act of kindness can cross every boundary, wealth, status, fear, and pride, and remind us that the greatest fortune any human being can possess is another human being who chooses to stay.